regional management. So I'm happy and thankful to be here.
Cool. And I do see recording has started, so everybody, hopefully you're okay with being recorded. If you're not, now is your time to go ahead and leave the meeting. And with that, my name is Andrew Stauffer. I work in product management here at ESRI. I've been here 16 going on 17 years. I'm normally based out of my home office in Columbus, Ohio, but I do work for the product team, which is ArcGIS for Microsoft 365 product. It includes a component for SharePoint, Excel, Power BI, Teams, and Power Automate. So we'll hit on a little bit of all of that today, even though our focus is on SharePoint. I am calling it a little bit remote today. I'm in Mississauga, Ontario, just outside of Toronto. So glad I could be here for everybody today. With that, I think, Krithica, if you're okay with it, I might just jump in. I've got only a couple slides to show and then get into the demos. Just show you what the capabilities are and what the functionality is. Real quick before we jump into it, I know some people have video on, some people don't, but if you want to use like the little raise your hand button, is everybody an ArcGIS user? Could everybody put a hand up if you're an ArcGIS user? So use the little reaction hand up. Because I know a lot of the times with these products, we end up kind of bleeding into the IT space where, I have more of an IT Microsoft, 365 person, but I need to add in better maps, or I'm a GIS person looking to go ahead and use the Microsoft tech. So excellent. It looks like just about everybody. So we're already pretty familiar. Maybe a few people aren't. Excellent. So if you want, you can go ahead and put your hands down. I appreciate that. It's really a nice way, especially when there's like 30 of us on a call to help read the room and when we're all in different rooms here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I do have my notifications off, but if there's an awkward message that pops in from my wife, just enjoy a good laugh or my son or something like that. So great. I'm going to go ahead and here, share my screen. Excellent. And we'll get in. As I mentioned earlier, the team has been going through this major rewrite over the last year and a half, where we used to have all of these different individual products, ArcGIS Maps for Office, ArcGIS Maps for SharePoint, two of the most popular because they've been around for about 10 years. They had completely different looking interfaces. Then we started doing something with Power BI, even more recently with Teams. Everything looked completely different. So what we did as a team is we started to just rewrite everything from the ground up. And our goal here is to have one product called ArcGIS for Microsoft 365. And it's really the value of what you have with an ArcGIS account when you bring it into your Microsoft business applications. In doing so, I just lost my cursor. So in doing so, some of the things that we wanted to do is go ahead and create a consistent experience. So if you know how to use and make a map with our component in Excel, it's the same thing as in SharePoint, and it's going to be the same thing as in Power BI. So this is great. If you're a mapping expert in one piece of the technology, it now flows through all of it. In addition to this consistent experience, we do leverage unique parts of each application. So with Excel, for example, we can use formulas, and Power BI, we leverage to some of the different data connections they have there. And in SharePoint, some of the big things that we can do, or main reasons people use SharePoint, is we store a list in there. We build a site to communicate, project goals. And then we may also have some documents in there. So what are the, unique things that we can do in that space? As we consolidate this all into a single product, we're really about, being able to create a better mapping experience no matter where you are, whether it's in the spreadsheet, it's about, having a interactive or responsive map inside your BI report, or as you see here, and we're going to focus on, within SharePoint. That consistent map comes all the way across. Now, we built these applications or components that you can go ahead and install. The major transformation that we made is that we don't have to download and install anymore. So there's no going to, my ESRI, where's the download? Hey, where's my SharePoint admin? We're going to set up a SharePoint farm on my laptop. All of that is gone. What we do is we build the software, we deliver it to Microsoft AppSource, and then through Microsoft AppSource, that's how people go ahead and grab it and add it to their tenant. So a tenant is just where our Microsoft 365 subscription lives. For the state of Massachusetts, it's going to be a different spot than maybe ESRI, a different spot than the cities, a different spot than DoD. Totally fine. As we move into this software as a service based deployment pattern, the other big benefits there is if we have any updates or not always new features, but maybe there's bug quality things that are going on, we can seamlessly deliver that. You don't need to say, all right, hey admins, we need to do a maintenance task, on the 30th of every month. We're going to go in, shut everything down, download software, install it. It's not like that anymore. It'll be seamless. The backend updates will just flow through. Especially if anybody out there is also using Power BI. We actually give code to Microsoft. It ships in the box. So they deploy all of our code. As we make updates, it just seamlessly flows out to everybody. Now with SharePoint, the Microsoft 365 admin adds it to the tenant. You add it to all of your sites. We come out with a new release that has a new features and functionality to it. The M365 admin just has to do a couple clicks to sync it over. So it's nice that we can do a little bit of a staged deploy there. For some reason you didn't want, what is most current. That said, again, I mentioned all the different components, but the exciting one we're here to talk about today is SharePoint. I really like to point out, what is the main value of it? We talk about ArcJS and SharePoint. We're just coming back from the user conference, and we had everybody coming through to our island asking questions. How does this work with ArcJS Pro? Can I connect in my geoanalytics server to it? Slow down. What we're really doing is we have this map component that adds into a SharePoint page. So SharePoint's really good for making pages. I add the map component to it. I can just display a map. It could show my ArcJS content and I'm happy. That's it. I could add a list, which is a SharePoint database. And if it has spatial qualities to it or spatial attributes, we can go ahead and put that on a map. We'll demo and talk about that in a minute. And then the other big thing, SharePoint becomes a document store. Well, how can this be better for finding and searching documents? One of the things that we did here, and this is really, really unique to what we're providing, is this ability to go ahead and geotag and geosearch documents. So we talk about a geotag. What I can do is I can take a layer, and here we're just previewing the page.
Turn the volume down.
Oh, sorry, is there a question? Okay. So here we're just kind of previewing the page. I can build this out in SharePoint. It's a destination for me. I can add in these different layers, and then based on these different layers, I can go ahead and set up a geotag. What it really means is I'm going to take attributes from a specific layer and tie it into the search index that when we query the geosearch against it, it's going to look for that and then return any documents that have that tag. So for example, here we had a parcel ID. I clicked on that parcel ID and it returns this pool permit for me. One of our favorite customers is in Southern California. It's a groundwater consulting firm. And they came to us not as GIS users, as SharePoint users. And they had over 2,500 documents that have been collected and curated over 45 years of business. And these documents were everything about the different projects that they were doing around the area. And what they started to find is problems with a customer may call in, or a manager may ask, how many projects have we done in this watershed? How many projects have we done in this neighborhood? They could never answer that in a timely manner. They'd have to go through, they're surfing, files, folders, opening things, trying to figure out what it was. It would take them on average about 45 to 50 minutes, just to find the right document. Once they discovered the solution and deployed it, they went through and geotagged all 2,500 documents. When they did this, they reduced the time to find documents from 50 minutes to less than 3 minutes. So what this meant is not only for somebody that's been at the company for 40 years, could they quickly, click on a neighborhood and return every proposal or every project that was done in the neighborhood or the watershed or a zip code, but new employees that were coming into the organization could quickly search over 40 to 45 years worth of documents by simply just clicking on the map. So it really, really expedited some of that, we call it like institutional knowledge. John's been here for 14 years and he knows where all the little folders are. And oh, you really look for something, ask Krithica. She's been here forever. She knows exactly where that folder is. And we don't have to do that anymore. it becomes a lot more self-service. It's a lot easier for people to find this. So with this, I'm just going to transition over. We'll just demonstrate and show a little bit of the software, the two different main capabilities, and then I really want to start to open it up for some questions. So I'm going to go in here. Okay, end the show. And here was the browser. So right now we just have this demo site up with our mining integration. So it's a web page that's been built on IT approved technology. If you've used SharePoint over 10 years, you know that they've made a tremendous amount of changes in the last 2 years. SharePoint Online is fantastic. We can go in, we can edit the page, we can swap out all of these little different photos, we can link to things, we can highlight documents, you know, what are the top 10 that are going to appear in here. We can add in this map component. So here we see the map component. And talking exactly what we were just saying was this geotag and geosearch. So we've added the monitoring wells, and I want to be able to tag and search on this. So I can open this up. We're looking at the monitoring wells, and I can see that we're tagging things based on a station ID or year. So if somebody wants to come around and click on a particular station ID, then they'll see all of the different permits or proposals that have been done at that particular mining site. I chose those variables. If I wanted to tag a document, I can go in here and search. I have 6 documents that are available in my library. So if we click on this documents tab up here at the top, I'll see those 6. As we keep adding more and more in there, there's more and more that become available. Everything that has a little tag on here has already been tagged. I can manage these. So maybe I want to remove those 2. I can delete them, or I can delete all, or just those 2. For this example, maybe we're just going to go ahead and take a look at these sample drill cores. So I clicked on it and actually downloaded it, but now I'm going to click and drag over, and then as I hover over a particular feature, I can see what is going to be tagged. I drop it, it tags it, and then I see a little success message in the lower right-hand corner telling me this has been tagged. Now, depending on how SharePoint's configured, sometimes it can run pretty fast, that I'll get that sample drill cores Excel document when I click on that particular well location. Sometimes it might take up to 5 minutes. Yeah, it's just all about the different indexing and searching that SharePoint does when it's going through the document. So I've added these new attributes. It's written into a term store. It's updating that. Sometimes it can take a little bit of time, and that's more on the SharePoint Online side. Tagging in documents is easy as just dragging them down there. I could drag all 6 and put them on a location one at a time. I think you kind of get the hint there. If I want to search for it, I can go ahead and click on the search option here. Then as I zoom in on my map, click this one here, and then it shows me the 2 files that are associated with this. So it's monitoring wells when it was last updated, and then if I want to go ahead and open the file, see if I get to one of these other ones in here. You can see it. Oh, there's my sample drill course on 1. Let's see if it shows up on this bottom one. Okay, so I have all of them up here on the bottom one. If I do have something like a Word document or a PowerPoint presentation, as you can see, I hover over it and it loads a preview. I don't know about you, but I sometimes keep multiple versions of the same presentation and multiple versions of the same Word doc. It's nice to be able to go in and get a preview of that. As I hover in, I can go in, click through some slides. I know I made a change on slide 4. Yep, this is the one I'm looking for. Now I can click to open the file, and it'll take me to that file within another tab. So pretty powerful capabilities here. If I want to really start to dial in some more of the capabilities here, I'm going to go ahead and edit my page. And when I edit my page, here's where I can add in the different components. So we hover over here, we get that little plus sign. I can add a new part. Here's our SharePoint application. So it says ArcGIS Maps Now. It'll start to change and start to say ArcGIS for SharePoint in here very soon. But as you're just building a generic web page, outside of ESRI here, I can put in a button, it's a call to action, hero images, links, YouTube videos, stream, some of the video recording services that are available within Microsoft, recent documents, list properties, tweets from Twitter, Yammer, all sorts of different things in here. So I can actually build a really, really powerful web page that communicates about my project. For some of our customers I've spoken to out there, I've actually heard SharePoint is our intranet. So it's the only thing that we're allowed to browse and view to go around. And a SharePoint list is their database. So if you're really locked down on that, this is your, how you're going to build your, local wide web, if you will. But a lot of different pieces that you can add in here. You can even embed different applications. So good stuff here. As I get into the SharePoint piece, again, this is the ArcJS component. I can go ahead and configure some attributes here. So if I'm looking at the appearance, excuse me, I can change the height of it. If I want it to be a taller map, I can adjust that here, or it's a narrow band. Yeah, maybe once I've built in the page too, it's really about somebody's going to interact with this. Maybe they're just going to click on the well locations. I don't need them surfing the table of contents. I'm going to keep it clean. They don't really need to show the base map gallery. Find address. Okay, maybe they're going to move. We're not going to do any analysis or sharing. They also don't need to do any settings. And I as the tagger or site builder, I don't want to show tagging. I only want to show search. So I could do that, leave that on. Maybe I want to enable a capability here to show full screen. So excellent. I've really minimized all of the buttons on the side because this is all about, as GIS people, we've gone out, we're using Pro, we're collecting data out in the field. The SharePoint site is a way of communicating our work. It's a project page for other people to come and interact with what we've done. So I'll go ahead and say this is good for me now. Let's go ahead and republish my page. And now that it republishes, you can see it starts off right away. I don't have all of the other things on the side, and I can jump right into searching for my documents. So just simplifying that for the viewer or consumer, of my SharePoint site. Now, I think one thing that we often tend to forget about as well is that teams in SharePoint are very, very close. So every time I create a new team, it's actually SharePoint in the back end. So I can tell you if, we're just looking at ESRI stuff here. Jack's Plenary Slides is not a SharePoint site. It's a team that was set up, and a group of us worked on his slides for the big plenary session that was given at the UC. Or if we go into real estate, I've created a real estate team, then I can go in here and actually build a site. So here I have my team. I said I'm going to go create new page, and I've built out this home page. And where this can become really popular or help with a new communication pattern is then if I move over to Teams, here I am in my real estate site. So remember, I started with a real estate team, and then I went and created a SharePoint site. That site can now be added to Teams, and it's going to load right in the way that I left it. So here's my hero image at the banner. Click anything I want to do to get started. I have my geotag functionality in here. We have 2 maps for double bonus. I get down to the bottom, people can comment on it. It's going to use their Microsoft account. I can see who's leaving what comment. News posts, if we have events, there's a calendar application in here as well. So awesome. I'm just viewing this directly within Teams. If I zoom in and we do a search on this particular building, great. I'm able to go ahead and find this particular permit. I see the preview. That's what I needed. And then I'm going to go ahead and open the file. So it's kind of nice. I don't have to always send people to this URL to get to this main site. We can just go ahead and add that directly into Teams. And then you can build out as many pages as you want. And Teams, to me, isn't anything revolutionary. It's really just streamlining our communication patterns. Instead of sending an email with a link, click on link, open in browser, go back to email, reply back, great site, thank you. And it's all just streamlining that communication to happen within Teams. So this is a really, really powerful capability here. If I didn't want to put in the entire SharePoint page, maybe the SharePoint page was too much for me, it was overkill, then the other thing I could do is I can actually add just the SharePoint component directly into Teams. And now my tab loads that exact map. So now that the map is in here, there's no more page aspect to it. It is only the map, but it still has that same functionality, finding that permit. So that covers a lot on being able to tag and search for documents. There is one last piece that we can talk about, which is a SharePoint list. So here I am again at a SharePoint site, cleverly named communication site, and I have site contents. So different document libraries. This is where I'm storing all of my PDF, Word documents, PowerPoint presentations, you name it. All of that lives in here. It could even be Power BI files. So I have a PBIX project or report that goes in there, and we can tag that and search for that. I have this list of events. Here's my pages, but then I have a list. I mentioned a list is like a database. So here it is. It loads up the list. The way that you can create a brand new list is you can import an Excel file. You can start from scratch. It's a very Microsoft workflow. It's not very difficult to do. But as I'm looking at my list, you'll see this is just like every other spreadsheet out there. So row 1, what is the name? I have shape area, shape length. Uniquely to this one, I've actually brought in the geometry column. So if you have a SharePoint list that already has an X and a Y, we'll be able to add that to the map. Or in this case, what we did is we took a feature layer hosted in ArcGIS Online and pulled it down as a CSV using Power Automate. And when we do that, we format the geometry into this big string. When we have this big string, what I can then do, and again, it works the same whether it's a point, line, or polygon, is I have my site. I'm going to go here to my map. Looks like I ruined it because it was already saved here. But I can say I want to add a new layer from SharePoint. It's going to look at that list. I can configure, what am I adding it on? Is it XY or is it an ESRI JSON? For this case, and what I described is ESRI JSON. And then the column that we're going to look at is geometry. So I'll go ahead and click Add to Map. And there we go. So this is actually a unique data set I was working on that crosses the international date line. But we can zoom in here. And now it's going to treat this layer that's coming from a SharePoint list just like any other feature layer. So if I want to go in here and I want to style it based on region, I can do that. Or if I want to change it, maybe it's on GeoPick. So where I have coverage, I can do that. I can configure my pop-ups. So I can turn them completely off or turn them on. The ID field is never really helpful, object ID. But in this case, we're going to get rid of all the ones that we don't want. And now I can click on it, test it, and there's my pop-up. It's a lot cleaner. And we even see we're getting a repeat here in the CO name. So we can drop that. Dynamically responsive, right? As I'm changing things over here. So title field, let's do, there we go. There's one more to remove. So excellent. I can configure that pop-up here. If I wanted to label the fields, I can enable labels as well. And again, what I'm showing you and how the map works, this is the same across Excel and Power BI. So it's going to be a very consistent experience. If you know how to do it in one, you're going to know how to do it in all of them. But I can do a lot here, enable the halo. It's a little cleaner. Gosh, maybe I want to change that halo size. That down to a 2, it looks less blocky. All right, I'm feeling good about this. Or maybe labels are overkill. So I can do this now. Here we go. I can go off, save my site. Anybody can come and visit it. since the geometry is coming and this data is coming from the SharePoint list, if anybody was to edit that SharePoint list, we would see those changes here as well. So if they're changing the values that the map is styled on, maybe it's a certain number count. Okay, great. We're editing that in the list. That'll immediately reflect here on the map as well. I can't even go in and create, I didn't have it set up for this one, but I can add a new, if I edit my page, I can add a new part to the page, which is actually a list. So it's going to show my data just as a table. And then as I interact with the table, it does interact with the map. It's not as smooth of a two-way communication bit right now. That's something that we're working on in the next release, but it is a pretty solid one-way. So if I select some things in the table, I'll see that on the map. I think for there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, see what questions we have, and then we can always jump right back into a screen share and talk about any specific questions that we have. So, all right, now that I can see everybody again, any questions about what we covered this morning so far? Any thoughts about how this could work with any of your projects?
Thanks, Andrew. That was a great presentation. We have a couple of questions in the chat. I can read them out. The first question was if you can, can documents in other SharePoint document libraries be geotagged, or do the documents have to be located within the SharePoint page with the map?
It's cleaner if it's within that SharePoint page, but I do believe you can add other document libraries. So it should be very possible. If for some reason you have an issue with it, let us know.
Okay.
And Krithica, I actually see the chat now, so I can go through these. Okay. Have we run into any issues with SharePoint with more than 5,000 items? Yes, absolutely. SharePoint's going to have some limits. We can do we can do everything that we can within those limits. So, I've got a nice big long list. Okay, we get about 5,000 in there. We try to work on some different paging things to see what we can do, but sometimes we get stuck on those limits. Specifically too, talking about the geometry thing. Hey, really cool. I can put polygons in there, right? Microsoft has a limitation that a single string that gets stored, and this works with Excel, SharePoint, Power BI, has to be less than 32,676 characters. So if I have detailed polygons like the state of Alaska, I will never get that shape into the list ever. I can simplify it, I can do a lot of things, but at that point, maybe I need to be using a different tool and I need to think a little bit different about my data workflows. Question here, is the geotag saved into the document? So if we copy the document and moved it somewhere else, is it still tagged? David, I'm not 100% sure on that one. If you move the document, I don't believe it actually stores in the documents metadata. There is a different term store that we're actually searching against, and then we're returning that document. So if I was to take a PDF from one area and then move it over to another, could it still be found? Pretty sure that that's going to break because there's a more of a relationship there. It's not just in the metadata that gets stored in the document as it gets indexed itself. Working through here, seems like Erica has a question. What would the workflow look like for geotagging hundreds or thousands of documents? So right now that this workflow would look very manual. You're going to take one at a time, move them over. You can grab a whole library. So if I had a whole folder full and move them over, it'll tag that entire folder full. We do have customers that have asked, I have a folder full or a document library with 10,000 documents for it, and I want you to auto tag it. Could you do this for me? It is something that we're working on. The way that we're doing this is we're actually looking into Power Automate. So kind of going back to the whole story for a minute, we have this consistent mapping experience across Excel, Power BI, SharePoint. And we have people that, could you do this custom thing? And could you do that custom thing? Instead of building, kind of one-off functionality into each one of those interfaces, we're really going to start to rely more on Power Automate. Power Automate becomes a way of that you can customize and drive the behavior to do whatever you want to do. I look at Power Automate as a collection of Lego pieces and say, Alexander here wants to go ahead and build a car, but there's no wheels. He puts his hand up, Andrew, I need some wheels. I put wheels in there. We're good. But Felicia comes in, I need to build a truck. I need bigger wheels. Okay. Hey, it took us a couple weeks. Here's some bigger wheels. And then we're off and set and ready to go. So we want to continue to build the extensibility that way. Now to your question about these 10,000 documents, what would we do? We've looked at it from, when we bring into Power Automate, there's all these capabilities of the Microsoft services. So one of them that we can connect into is Microsoft Cognitive, is it Cognitive Search or Cognitive? I think it's just Cognitive Services. And so we can create a flow where as a new document is dropped in, it will go ahead, send it off to Cognitive Services. Cognitive Services is essentially AI that will read your document. We train it for what information to pull out. We pulled out that information. Now, what do we want to do with it? Well, we can pass that into the ArcGIS connector for Power Automate, where we can say, go ahead and geocode, get an XY. Do we want to append attributes? We can do that. We need to take it a step farther to say, this is how to write it into the term store. It shouldn't be impossible. It's something that we can do. I would expect us to have a better answer of like, here's the actual flow, click to follow in about 9 months. But for us to do that, it's really cool that we can leverage these, other cognitive services or other Microsoft services that are out there without having to say, oh, we're going to rebuild all of this tech on our own. We can use what's already there. We can use what's in the box. So Erica, looks like you have a question because your hand's up and I see your video.
Could I just ask a follow-on question to this?
Yeah.
So let's say we have a point layer that's in our ArcGIS Online and it has like a file ID associated with each point. And then we have, a SharePoint site that has all of our documents in it, and each document has a file ID in it that matches with one of those points. Is there a way to sort of connect those two separate things based on a common ID?
So that is a fantastic question and something that we also heard last week at the user conference. So perfect timing. No, it doesn't automatically. We can just reference that and it's going to work magically right now. We have to look at, how do we enable you to take attributes and write them into the term store? And so we could do that auto searching on it. It wouldn't be as seamless. And we do have people that have followed other workflows where we've said, hey, create features, and then you have URLs and a column, because that's how you're linking things right now outside of SharePoint, right? What is a way to kind of marry those together better? We don't have a good solution yet. So there's a question about being the site owner for being able to order and tag. No, you don't have to be the owner in order to do that, but you will need permissions to the term store. So I will need to be able to write into the term store saying, here's the new attribute set somebody's going to be able to search on. Kind of makes sense. It's like a database permissions thing. If I can't write into the search database, it's not going to work. If I can write into it, somebody else can perform that search on it. So just a vote of confidence from Tara about DEP permits or Word docs. This would be very helpful for trying to organize them and keep them together. That's what we're hearing from a lot of people. I mentioned it again, our favorite customer in Southern California, 2,500 documents. He was like, I just closed my door and sat there for 6 weeks, 8 weeks. He's like, it wasn't fun. It wasn't pretty. I got it done, but it was so worth it because the reduced time afterwards and then teaching people. I can guarantee you, as we were working and building new versions, we always talk to him because he's very, very sensitive about breaking that work that he did. It has to be forward compatible as we keep moving ahead. Okay, so just a question, can the SharePoint component be deployed to a SharePoint site that is not within a team? Absolutely. So if you have a SharePoint site, you can add this map component to it. You can add layers from ArcGIS Online, ArcGIS Enterprise. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be within a team. It's just that there's a direct correlation now that every time you create a team or somebody in the organization creates a new team and you get that lovely notification that you've been added to another one, at the back end, it's always SharePoint happening back there. It's almost like Teams is converging as this alternate UI to SharePoint, and then SharePoint's just a really nice way of building a website on top of it, right? So over time, I think we're going to see Microsoft merging the technology more and more. Okay, looks like some internal conversation here. We are finding that we have to make sure IT adds employee to the Azure Active Directory to make sure they have access. That could be part of it. So everything goes through Azure App Store or the marketplace there. The way that we work here at ESRI, I had to put in an IST request, so to our help desk, and say, Microsoft 365 admin, could you please make SharePoint available to all employees? They said yes. I said, how hard was that? And the response back was it was about 5 to 6 clicks. Now everybody can go ahead and build their own SharePoint sites. Just being very transparent and honest, this was huge. Because at ESRI in the past, if you wanted to demo this, if Krithica had to demo this, she would have her laptop, she would have ArcGIS Enterprise and all of this stuff installed on it and a SharePoint farm and all of the bits and pieces. She would show up on site, thinking back like 10 years ago, open up her laptop, cross her fingers, and like, I hope everything's going to still be working from the last time I shut it down. We've evolved a lot. Now that is all software as a service and we're supporting SharePoint Online, and it's only SharePoint Online, it's just a click to add. So much, much easier to do that. This is also true for Teams and the Excel component. So it's a click to deploy and then it becomes available to everybody. You can force install it. There's all sorts of cool things that the admins can do, or you can leave it optional for people to go ahead and add on their own. So I wonder if we could do a demo step-by-step of adding a map to a site and how to interact with hosted feature layer. Hey, if you don't mind, let's go ahead and just show that real fast. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. And here we are in a site. I can go back here. Get really tricky. Let's create a brand new site. So for this one, I'll just choose a communication site. I'm going to say, what do we want to call this? Say mass demo. I go to finish. All right, it's creating a site. So in the back end, it's putting in the file folders and structures and all of those lovely things back there. I can start with this default, or I can browse the different templates that are available to me. Again, this is just you as a website designer. I built a lot of websites. During my career at ESRI, I actually worked and launched our open data product, brought it to market, got it out there, transitioned it into Hub. So I'm very familiar with how site builders work. A lot of our work there correlated to the dental website I was building for my wife's practice using Wix. So if you see any blend over there, that's why. It's ironic to me that, hey, now I'm into SharePoint and here I am yet with another site builder. So it's all up to you. Browse templates, have fun with this. I've actually enjoyed the experience. When I get in here, I've created the page. If I go to edit, I'm now editing the page so I can delete things. I see it because the box that is around the item that says news. If I go over here, I can add a new section. So it's like 1 column or 2 column, or I can delete the section. So this is just how to use the SharePoint site builder. If I need to add a new part, I go in here and search and I see ArcGIS maps. If it's not automatically in here for me, I can go in here and say add an app. And if I choose add an app, I can see what's available to me. And Classic, that's the old version that we're moving on from. What's available from my organization, and then what's been made available to me from the SharePoint store. So, I can search, I can find these things. IST should make it available to you. So if you're not seeing it, so go back one more. Okay. Back to mass demo. Here we go. Okay. So edit my site. So let's go back to where we left off. So if I'm not seeing it in here, I can go to the little gear icon, add application. I should be able to find ArcGIS for SharePoint, add it. It can request it to the admins, but ahead of time, the admins should have pushed it to me and I'll see it. I know this shows up in my frequently used because I clearly demo and talk about this a lot. But if I go down here, it shows up in my advanced. So I click on the advanced. It's going to go ahead and add that part in here for me. And then it gives me an option right at the start. Do I want to log in with an ArcGIS account because I want to add online account because I have private layers that I want to add into this map? Yes or no? Or I could go ArcGIS Enterprise, which I have put in my enterprise URL, and then I'm adding in private layers. If I don't have any if I add private layers from one of these two environments, whoever comes and views the page will need an account into one of those environments. This is because security is an important feature. If I have a layer that's very secured and I don't want anybody else to see it, or only 5 people in the company to see it, and I've secured that in ArcGIS, be it online or enterprise, if I embed it in the Sharepoint page, I don't want to circumvent that security and then create a leak and everybody can see it. So it will do that additional check that as the map loads, it'll then prompt me, sign in with your account. Are you allowed to see this? Yes or no? If we have single sign in, I'll buzz right through. I'll see the map, everything I have permissions to. Hooray, we're secure. If my single sign-on goes through, but I don't have permissions, the base map will load, nothing else will load. I need to go get an account. If I'm using public information, so my SharePoint list has an XY, I'm using publicly accessible things from ArcGIS Online, I don't need to add an account. I can just continue forward. So I can say, now I want to add data from a SharePoint list. I want to add data from ArcGIS. So we do weather, USA weather watches and mornings. And if I wanted to leave this as the main thing in my map, I could do that. You know, remember I can edit, I could remove all of the extra buttons because I, just want people to come to this page, scroll through here and see a weather map. That's it, that's fine, everything's public, no accounts are required. So hopefully that covered just really how to do the demo. It's pretty simple to add that component into the page there. And then the last question we have here from Jake, and it looks like we're like almost right on time. If a folder is geotagged, do new files added to that folder automatically receive it? Great question. They do not. So you will have to go in and add them individually. When you go into the little dialog, you'll see, does it have the little link icon to it? This is something that we want to solve with Power Automate. So Power Automate has the capability to say every time there's a new file in a folder, go start an action. Okay, well, what is that action going to be? Geotag everything else based on whatever this folder was. Go to Cognitive Services, get red, and then write those attributes into that search index. So, we're working towards automating this, as best as possible, leveraging Power Automate. I did mention Power Automate a lot. I don't know if that's new to the group. Last week at user conference, all of our sessions on it were exploding. We were more than full in some areas. It got a little sketchy, but it's definitely a growing technology. Low code, no code is kind of the way to go. There's just a shortage of developers. And so we want to enable people to build custom functionality without having to be a developer. The Power Automate piece is almost like model builder for people that are familiar with GIS. I can build all and drag things together as model builder. I can drag things together in Power Automate. It's super cool. And then how do I display that? Well, it could be in Excel. It could be in SharePoint. So for example, we have a template flow out there right now. Every time somebody enters in a new address into a SharePoint list, we automatically geocode it, get the XY, and then we write the XY back into the list so it can display on the map. It'll happen automatically. The end user has to do nothing. They don't know anything about geocoding. They just know that they're putting in an address. So it's that kind of logic. And then what is the display? In that case, it was talking about a SharePoint list. But if somebody wanted to go custom, there's this thing called Power Apps. So Power Apps is kind of like Web App Builder, but more in the Microsoft world. I have a button. I want it to do what? I want the button to go fire off the flow to do the thing and then display the data on a map in the application. So very, very exciting to see where we're going to go in the next year. and some of the different capabilities that are there. You know, coming back from UC, and it seems like there's a lot of ArcGIS veterans on the call. You know, for me on the product team and being a product person, UC is kind of like the start and end of the year. So we've met with hundreds of customers. It's now, here's all the priority. We've heard a lot about being able to automate a lot of the tagging and searching bits. That's what we're going to work on, and then, you know, try to deliver that over the next year. Yeah, I'm a pretty open person, and so is the team. So if you have any questions, you can post them into the ESRI community. Myself, the developers and engineers will answer. If you're not getting a response there, or you have, you know, maybe a not sure question, you can email Matthew, Krithica, myself directly. We're more than happy to help answer any questions you might have to help enable you in your projects. So with that, I will go ahead and pause if there's any final thoughts, questions, and I don't know if Krithica or Matthew would like to wrap it up.
Thanks, Andrew. That was great. I learned so much today from you. I had a quick question about making these sites publicly available. At some point, I remember you telling me that it was more for internal purposes. Could you share a little bit more information about that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So in the past, we've had people, you know, who create a SharePoint site. It was public. For some reason, I'm not sure all the business rules behind it, but Microsoft has not allowed SharePoint Online to be publicly accessible sites. They're typically more internal. So we see it more as, you know, internal projects, Teams communication, things like that. I do think they're starting to surface some workflows behind being able to take a SharePoint site, publishing it to a Power Apps portal, and then it becomes accessible there. But the documentation to me is still kind of like in development, and Microsoft's still trying to figure out what to do there. So if I'm thinking, you know, anybody on this call, I got you fired up, excited, you're going to go try this, we'll slow it down a little bit. Internal use only, pages for communicating to the teams, the managers, and things like that. If you're like pounding your fist, I absolutely must have a public site today. I will tell you the other product I've worked on that is Sites and Pages, or what is it now, ArcGIS Hub. It's great. You can create public pages there. You can put a lot of things in there. You don't have the same document tagging and searching capabilities, but you can still make a pretty good map over there. So, or embed some pretty good maps over there. So, so if you do have bigger needs on making one of your SharePoint sites public, please let me know. We do work closely with the Microsoft development teams across all the different components that we build and business applications that we build them for. So we might be able to encourage some new workarounds, workflows, and changes on the Microsoft side. Yes, Chandreyee. Oh, you're still muted. I'm sorry. That's okay.
Sorry. Isn't making a SharePoint site more an IT thing? Is that something ESRI has to get involved in?
No, it's more of an IT thing. Once they give you permissions, you can go build your site. So for me, what I demoed today, my IT team has given me permissions to go ahead and make SharePoint sites. I can make teams. I can do all of that. I just go in and do it. It's completely outside the ESRI realm. You can actually build a gorgeous site without a map in it, believe it or not. I would prefer you used our component, put a map in there. Hopefully it's meaningful. But yeah, totally an IT thing.
I'd like to ask another question just because we're wrapping up and I know other people have to go, but since it's so exciting and I'm sure a lot of people will want to dive in and start playing, I want to find out the best way for us to get help. Andrew's email was in the invite, but I want to make sure we're not all bombarding you. And from the GIS office, we'd like to make sure that we keep on top of learning things. So would a better way be for everybody in this audience, if you have questions, maybe if you want to direct it to one of us, Krithica, Erica, Nathanael, or me, and then we can channel them. Should we be contacting you, Andrew, or Krithica? We want to make sure we don't bombard everyone. We do this properly.
That's great.
I think me first, or Andrew, if he's offering. Krithica's going to be out, so I think we have a few people that are going to help back her up while she's out for a little bit. But I think directing through me would be easiest.
So
And
then
that's a
I
fantastic
have a
approach too.
I
Yeah.
have a request that if we channel it all, maybe through our office or Erica or some of us, then we all get to learn from this.
Mhm.
You know, if everybody starts emailing Matt individually, then
Yep.
the rest of us don't get to learn from this.
Mm.
And it would be really great for us to all kind of help each other out. So I'm doing this at the risk of blowing up Erica and Nathanael in my inboxes. But if you could contact someone in the GIS office with your questions, I started compiling a list of Q&A that I'll put on our GIS hub or somewhere else, and that way we can all grow together. Alex Eberle's already, who actually, it was all his idea. He researched this and asked for this months ago. So he's already a step ahead. So to everybody on this call, I think I'm throwing him under the bus to say that he's our resident person who's farthest up on this curve. And I'm just gonna have him show me everything he did. But I wanna make sure I'm not you know, blowing anybody's bandwidth and everybody learning together.
And I think that's a perfect approach too, is that, you know, if we have 30 people, if we can bubble it up to 3 first, you know, you have local experts, and then if the local experts need help, we can come in. There's a chance, you know, I'll be honest, I'm at a hockey rink in Canada this week. My email time is a little lag, but Erica might reply faster, right? So, you know, try the local resources, build that knowledge as a core GIS team to support everybody. And then as you need, pull us in and we help you. So I love it. Absolutely perfect.
Thank you. Nathaniel, is that okay with you?
Yeah, sorry, that had trouble getting to my button there. Yeah, that's fine with me. I like the idea of maybe compiling the questions on the DCR hub page for everyone to see, because that's publicly available. So maybe we can just create a little, like a card on our projects page and with a running list of questions and answers, so people can go there. I'll let you figure out exactly where on the hub page that goes, but that might be the easiest way to sort of communicate with this entire group, which is however many people are in this thing. Plus you figure some people couldn't make it, may check out the video later, or like come in late to this. So it's a little tough to predict who's going to get involved with this thing.
Thank you. I'll send an email out to the distribution list that was already in this meeting. If any of you on this call have forwarded it on to other people, like I know Francisco, you did to a couple, make sure that you let me know their email IDs and I'll add them to the distribution list. And I'll show you exactly where I put the QA. I took some notes today and I transcribed Andrew's answers to the questions that showed up in the chat. Of course, it's in the video too. Krithica's been recording. She'll send me the link. If it's okay, Krithica, for me to publish that to our YouTube channel, is that all right? Okay.
Yep.
So I'll link all that on our hub page somewhere, and I'll email all attendees to say where exactly you can find it. And on that, wherever I put it on the hub page, I'll also list whom you should contact with your questions. Again, it's probably Erica, Nathaniel, or myself. And from there, we'll forward it to Andrew, Matt, whoever is, and we'll try and create a good knowledge base. And again, throwing Alex Eberle under the bus, he's the most advanced in this, and he's going to be our in-house guru, so that we don't have to bug Andrew until we absolutely must. Thank you.
Thank you. I can't let this one go. Felicia, your hand's still up. Do you need something?
Yes, I have a question. So like while you're talking going on, and I opened SharePoint and I tried to look for that ArcGIS map app, and it seems that I don't have permission to add apps. Is that normal?
It can be. So like I've had that here at ESRI too, where I've had to have somebody else, my IT group, make it available to me.
Okay.
So yeah, that'll be an internal request.
Andrew, so Francisco was asking the same question too. So we have a DCR GIS team, and in that team, since I'm one of the owners, I was able to enable it for my team. Like Alex Eberle's part of a different team for service forestry, and the owner of that team was able to enable it for him. And from then on, he was able to go ahead and make the map. What is the way to deploy it? Do you actually look for an app and deploy it, or you just go straight into making a map the way you showed us?
Yeah. Gosh, we didn't have time to do or to show it, but on the admin side, you can literally you find an application and say, I want to make this available. And then you can do it to like a subgroup, like just a security group, or you could say everybody. And it's all just about managing the permissions of things on the Microsoft side. I can find some general documentation. Every time we go to our Microsoft admins at ESRI and say, hey, we need this or we need that, it's been kind of impressive. Like, they do it really quick and it doesn't seem to be a big deal. They say everything takes like a couple seconds to do. So I think the biggest hang up we've seen out there from customers is, really it's like IT policy. Like, well, are we going to let everybody do this? Yeah, it takes a little bit of time, but once it passes all of those checks, everybody's usually good to go. So sorry, I had to plug in power there. We had 6%.
So
So I would put in an
have
IT request and
be-
say, hey, I need to add this.
So, Felicia, you're part of our team.
Yay!
You're already part of the GIS team, so I'm
Yep.
assuming you have access the same way that Francisco does, but I'm not yet sure. This might be where we might have to just do some, like, try to make a map the way Andrew showed us. And if you
Yep.
run into trouble, then that's where I keep throwing Alex under the bus because he's successfully done it. And
Yep.
if we play back this video, like, I'm not exactly sure how Andrew did what he just did. I'm gonna have to slow it down and watch it again and try it on my end. If
Yep.
you run into a problem there, then we'll take next steps. But I believe that was my question before that Andrew answered, that you don't necessarily have to be part of a team in order to use it. So I think Tara was saying before that all of us by default, even if Felicia, your particular office does not have a team dedicated to it, you're probably part of a bigger DCR team, like there's some master level team.
Right.
So if we can get the owner of that team to enable it for that main general SharePoint site, you know how each team has a folder called general, and that folder has a SharePoint site. So I imagine that if it's enabled for that site, then it means everybody who's a member of that team now has access to it. So we just have to look into that and
Okay.
see.
Okay,
But for
yeah.
now, for you specifically, you're part of our team, so I think you should be able to use it, but
Yeah, like I said, I just tried, I opened a section and I didn't have any of those options that he had. And then when I tried to look for ArcMaps in the apps, it said that I didn't have permission.
Yeah,
Well,
so
so I
even
don't
I
think
have
you'll-
no apps available to me in
so you
SharePoint.
won't be able to install the app because you have to be owner, but
Yeah.
it's like Andrew said, that maybe I didn't share the apps correctly, or maybe I didn't share it to the general team. That's why you don't have access, right, Andrew? Is that where I
Yeah,
start?
just to be clear on the app stores too, it's really funny at Esri. So Excel, we're not allowed to get to our app store at all. So we had a custom deploy and it shows up as admin managed. In SharePoint, we can see things, but we can't add them ourselves. We can only request. So it like nudges the admin like, hey, this person's asking for it. In Teams, we can add anything we want.
Gotcha.
So, it's a bit of how the admin has set things up. And it does get a little black boxy. Like, we're trying to document more of that. That was something that did come out of user conference. Somebody came over and just wanted to see how the admin tools worked. We're like, well, we didn't document how all the admin tools work, like just a real quick. And they're like, but I want to see all the admin tools. We're like,
Okay.
very fair. So, we'll follow up with more documentation, seeing how it works.
Yeah.
But again, even internally here, we're always, hey, admin, can we do this? Hey, admin, can we do that?
Right.
And it's
Okay.
usually a quick yes, click, click.
Yeah.
So
I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss something.
no. I do apologize. I have another call right now, so I'm gonna go. Michael, is it a quick one since your hand's up?
Yeah, I just wanted to add in because I work with our IT coordinator for our department a lot, so I've seen a lot of the SharePoint admin stuff from that perspective. There's a lot of things that since we moved to SharePoint, we're still waiting for, including the ability to add our own metadata columns and do like manage terms, and I would suspect launch things like this. So I know from, as far as I understand, there are other things I think in the same realm of being able to launch an app like this that we're still waiting for IT to be ready to do. And we're calling those like SharePoint governance things. So maybe lobby your IT liaisons to get, a response. Because it looks like we're probably heading towards a full year of being on SharePoint without having a lot of these things. So
Thank you, Mike.
Well, thank you, everybody. I'm gonna head off to the next call. It was great to talk and meet you all, and we'll be here to help as needed.
Thanks, Andrew.
Everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks,